28 years. That is how long Basil II waits for revenge. 28 years since August 17, 986, when Bulgarian warriors smashed his army at Trajan's Gate. 28 years of grinding, relentless campaigns. 28 years of burning Bulgarian fields, taking Bulgarian forts, bleeding Bulgarian strength one village at a time. And on July 29, 1014, at a mountain pass called Kleidion near the village of Clint in the Belasica range, he gets it. 15,000 Bulgarian prisoners. 99 out of every 100 blinded, one eye left in the 100th man to lead them home. 2 months later, Tsar Samuel dies of a heart attack when he sees them. This is not legend. This happened. Primary sources name the generals, the mountain paths, the exact count of mutilated soldiers. What drives an emperor to order this? What tactical genius wins the battle? And what happens when you push revenge past every limit medieval warfare knows? Basil rules from Constantinople, crowned in 976 when he was just 18. Samuel controls Bulgaria, crowned a Tsar in 997. Both men inherited this war from their fathers and their fathers' enemies. The Bulgarians, under Khan Asparukh, had carved out a state along the Danube in 681, right in Byzantine territory. For 3 centuries, these two powers fought, made peace, betrayed each other, fought again. By 1014, both sides are exhausted, but neither will quit. If you value documented Byzantine and Bulgarian military history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual using sources from John Skylitz's Synopsis of Histories, written in the late 11th century around 1090, which provides the only continuous Byzantine narrative of this period and is cited constantly by modern historians. Also, drawing from the 14th century Bulgarian translation of the Manassas Chronicle and the peer-reviewed academic analysis, Did Basil II, the Bulgar Slayer, blind? 15,000 Prisoners, published on medievalists.net in August 2022, which critically examines the historical evidence. Now back to the information. Too young to rule. The General Nikephoros Xiphias took the throne, married Basil's mother. Nikephoros was assassinated in 969 by John Zimisces, who became emperor. John died of illness in 976. Only then, at 18, did Basil take real power. The young emperor faced immediate rebellion. 2 generals from Anatolia, Bardas Skleros and Bardas Phocas, both thought they could seize the throne. Basil crushed them both through 987. These revolts taught him to trust no one. He became cold, calculating, suspicious. He lived like a monk. No lavish parties, no fine robes, just war, just campaigns, just the slow destruction of Bulgaria. He besieged Serdica, now Sofia, for 20 days. Only 4,500 defenders inside because Samuel was campaigning in Thessaly to the south. But Samuel's troops made a forced march north, covered the distance in record time, set up a fortified camp near Vitosha Mountain. The siege dragged. Basil decided to retreat east through Trajan's Gate, a narrow mountain pass. When Basil's army entered the defile, exhausted, strung out, the Bulgarians struck from above. The Byzantine rearguard under Leo Melissenus was slaughtered. The retreat became a rout. Byzantine soldiers threw away their weapons and ran. Basil himself barely escaped, some accounts say disguised in common armor. His imperial standards were captured. His pride was shattered. Attrition. Scorched earth. John Skylitz's, writing 7 decades later, records the pattern. The Emperor Basil II continued to invade Bulgaria each year and destroy and devastate everything on his way. Samuel could not stop him in the open field or engage the emperor in a decisive battle and suffered many defeats and began to lose his strength. His generals Nikephoros Xiphias and Theodorikanos crossed the Balkan Mountains, seized Great Preslav, plundered the Dobruja. 1004. Basil took Skopje. 1005. Dyrrhachion fell. The Byzantine noose tightened. Bulgarian nobles began surrendering their cities. In 1005, the governor of Dyrrhachion, a major Adriatic port, handed it over without a fight. Samuel's authority among his own magnates weakened with every lost fortress. Continue retreating, lose more cities, maybe lose the throne to rebellious nobles. Or make a stand. Force Basil into a battle Samuel could control. Choose terrain that favored defense. Build fortifications the Byzantines could not bypass. Win or die trying. The name means key in medieval Greek. The pass sits in the valley between the Belasica and Ograzden mountains near the modern Bulgarian village of Cluj. The Struma River flows through this valley. For centuries, this route was the main invasion corridor from Byzantine territory into the Bulgarian heartland. Every Byzantine army heading northwest toward Bulgaria's core had to come through here. They built wooden palisades from timbers cut in the surrounding forests. They raised towers on the flanks. They positioned 15,000 to 20,000 defenders. The sources vary behind these works. The chronicles claim Samuel gathered 45,000 men total, but modern historians like Basil Zlatarsky consider that exaggerated, likely half that, maybe 20,000 to 25,000, and the pass itself more in reserve. Thick wooden walls reinforced with earth, guard towers at intervals, narrow passages that would channel any attacking force into kill zones. The Bulgarians held the high ground on both sides of the valley. They could rain arrows and javelins down on anyone trying to breach the palisade. They had supplies stockpiled in the nearby fortress of Strumitsa. Samuel himself commanded from Strumitsa, 3 miles east. They reached the Rupel Gorge on the Struma, then entered the Strumitsa Valley. When they approached Kleidion, they saw the wall. Basil ordered an immediate assault, test the defenses, find weak points. The palisade did not budge. Basil pulled back. He could have retreated, sought another route. He did not. 28 years of waiting ends here. Draw Basil's attention away from Kleidion, force him to split his army or abandon the siege. But the strategos of Thessalonica, Theophylact Botaniates, and his son Michael defeated Nestoritsa outside the city walls in a bloody battle. They captured many Bulgarian soldiers and a large quantity of military equipment. Then, Theophylact marched north with his victorious troops to reinforce Basil at Kleidion. The Byzantines probed the defenses. No breakthrough. Samuel's strategy was working. Lock the Byzantines in the valley, bleed them with skirmishes, wait for their supplies to run low, force them to retreat, then hit them during the withdrawal, like Trajan's Gate again. He consulted his generals. Nikephoros Xiphias, strategos of Philippopolis, modern Plovdiv, had fought Bulgarians for 14 years. In 1000 or 1001, Xiphias had led the expedition that captured Pliska and Preslav. He knew these mountains. He suggested a flanking maneuver. The Belasitsa mountain loomed south of the pass. Steep slopes, dense forest. The Bulgarians defended the passes through the valley floor, but could not guard every goat path on the mountain. Xiphias proposed leading a picked force up and over Belasitsa, descending behind the Bulgarian positions. If his men could surprise the defenders from the rear, while Basil attacked from the front, the palisade would collapse. Xiphias's men would be exhausted when they reached the top, vulnerable if they had to fight before descending. But Basil approved. July 26th or 27th, the sources differ by a day or two, Xiphias set out. Narrow tracks winding through the trees. The Byzantine infantry climbed in silence. They moved at night to avoid detection. The slopes were so steep that men had to pull themselves up using roots and rocks. Armor and weapons made every step harder, but they kept climbing. By July 29th, Xiphias and his force were positioned on the heights above the Bulgarian rear. Arrows flew. Men screamed. The fighting was savage. But this time, the Byzantines were not trying to break through. They were fixing the Bulgarian defenders in place. They hit the defenders from the rear. Panic. The Bulgarians turned to face this new threat. The moment they shifted, Basil's main force broke through the palisade. Byzantine heavy cavalry, the cataphracts in mail armor, poured through the gap. The Bulgarian line shattered. Thousands of Bulgarian soldiers tried to flee westward. The Byzantine cavalry ran them down. Thousands more were killed in the rout. The chronicles describe chaos, men throwing away weapons, commanders losing control, the entire defensive system collapsing in minutes. Samuel was at Strumitsa when the news arrived. He tried to rally forces for a counterattack. His son Gabriel Radomir was nearby with troops. Samuel and Gabriel rode east toward Mokrievo to aid the fleeing soldiers. They met the Byzantine advance head-on. Desperate fighting, many Bulgarians killed. Gabriel gave Samuel his horse and stayed behind to cover the retreat. Samuel escaped to Prilep, then to his capital at Prespa. Gabriel headed to Strumitsa to continue resistance. Kekaminos, another Byzantine source, says 14,000. The 14th century Bulgarian Manasses translation claims 8,000. Modern historians debate the exact number. But all sources agree, thousands of Bulgarian soldiers were captured, and what Basil ordered next was unprecedented. He divided the prisoners into groups of 100. In each group, 99 men had both eyes destroyed. The 100th man had one eye left intact. That one-eyed man would lead his blind comrades home. 150 men out of 15,000 kept one eye. 14,850 completely blinded. Or if we use the lower estimate of 8,000 prisoners, 79 completely blind men in each group of 100, one with one eye. Regardless of which source you trust, the scale is staggering. Skylitzes provides two reasons. First, revenge for Theophylact Botaniates. After the main battle, Basil sent Botaniates south with an army to clear the area around Strumitsa and destroy the fortifications, blocking the road to Thessalonica. On his way back to the main Byzantine camp, Gabriel Radomir ambushed Botaniates' column. Gabriel personally killed Botaniates with his spear. Botaniates was Basil's favorite general and advisor. His death enraged the emperor. The empire claimed authority over all former Roman lands, including Bulgaria. Blinding was the traditional Byzantine punishment for rebellion. It permanently removed a man from military service and political power without killing him, which would create martyrs. Blinding rebels sent a message: defy the emperor, this is the consequence. In Syria, he cut off hands of Bedouin captives, but never thousands at once, never with such methodical organization. 15,000 prisoners divided into groups of 100. The calculation alone is chilling. How do you blind 15,000 men? How many soldiers does it take to hold them down? How long does it take? If each blinding takes 3 minutes, that is 45,000 minutes, 750 hours, over 30 days of continuous work. Maybe multiple soldiers worked simultaneously. Maybe the prisoners were blinded in shifts over weeks. Or maybe the chroniclers inflated the numbers to emphasize the horror. He qualifies his account with the phrase, "as they say," suggesting even in his time the figure was questioned. But he also had access to witnesses who survived the battle, veterans who served under Basil, and the story was consistent across multiple sources. Column after column of mutilated men stumbling through the Bulgarian countryside, each group led by one half-blind guide. Imagine the sight: 100 men, 99 with empty eye sockets, one man with a single eye guiding them, hand on shoulder, a human chain shuffling down the road. Then another group, and another, and another. 150 groups in total, if we believe the 15,000 figure. Unable to fight, unable to work, a burden on their families, a visible reminder of defeat everywhere they went. Whether the heart attack was directly caused by the shock or Samuel already had heart problems, we cannot know. But the timing is exact. October 6, the chroniclers are consistent. His son, Gabriel Radomir, inherited the throne. Gabriel lasted 11 months. In August or September 1015, his cousin Ivan Vladislav murdered him while hunting near Ostrovo. Gabriel had saved Ivan's family from execution years earlier when Samuel sentenced them for treason. Ivan repaid that mercy with a lance. He seized the throne for himself. Basil entered the capital. The First Bulgarian Empire ended. Bulgaria became a Byzantine province and remained one until 1185, when the Asen brothers led a successful uprising. Order Bulgarian, Bulgaro Ubiets. He likely received the title posthumously. Few sources from his lifetime use it. But after his death in 1025, when later Bulgarian rulers caused trouble for Constantinople, Byzantine writers revived Basil's legend, the Bulgar Slayer, the emperor who broke Bulgaria with mass blinding. The nickname was both inspiration for Byzantine troops and terror for Bulgarian opponents. His brother Constantine VIII inherited the throne. Basil spent 49 years as emperor, most of it at war. He doubled the size of the Byzantine Empire. He reconquered Greece, the Balkans, parts of Syria, Armenia, Georgia. He reformed the tax system, broke the power of the great landed aristocracy, strengthened the central government. Military historians call him one of the most formidable Byzantine emperors. His campaigns are studied at war colleges. His use of attrition warfare, his patience, his refusal to seek glory in a single decisive battle until the enemy was already weakened. Methodical, relentless, effective. 15,000 prisoners, 99 out of every 100 eyes destroyed. That image endures. This script is thoroughly researched using primary sources including John Skylitz's Synopsis Historiarum, written in the 1090s, which I sourced from John Wortley's 2010 Cambridge University Press translation, and recent archaeological analysis, including Catherine Holmes's examination of Byzantine court politics published in Early Medieval Europe 2022. We cross-referenced multiple Byzantine and Bulgarian sources to ensure accuracy. Now back to the consequences. Nikephoros Xiphias, the general who led the flanking maneuver over Belasica, was rewarded with promotion to Patricios, a high court rank. In early 1015, he and Constantine Diogenes subdued the region of Moglina, which had rebelled. Toward the end of 1015, Xiphias campaigned from Mozenopolis to Triadica, modern Sofia, razing its surroundings and capturing the fort of Boiana. In 1018, the last year of the Bulgarian War, he subdued remaining Bulgarian strongholds near Servia, starting from Castoria. But Xiphias fell from grace. In 1021 or 1022, posted as strategos of the Anatolic theme at Caesarea, he conspired against Basil. Xiphias wanted to accompany the emperor on a campaign against Georgia. Basil refused. Angry, Xiphias allied with another general, Nikephoros Phocas Baritrakelos, whose father had rebelled against Basil decades earlier. They planned to assassinate the emperor. King George I of Georgia supported the conspiracy, hoping it would force Basil to abandon his invasion. Basil learned of the plot but did not turn back. Instead, he sent separate letters to Xiphias and Phocas, sowing distrust between them. The conspiracy collapsed. Xiphias was arrested, brought to Constantinople, tonsured as a monk, and exiled to Antigone, one of the Prince's islands in the Sea of Marmara. Most of the other conspirators were imprisoned, their estates confiscated. The Patricios Pherses the Iberian was executed. 2 imperial chamberlains were killed, one by Basil's own hand, the other thrown to wild beasts after trying to poison the emperor. But Xiphias stayed in exile until 1028, when Emperor Romanus III released him. By then, Xiphias was old and broken. He retired to the Studios monastery, no record of when he died. Gabriel Radomir, the Bulgarian prince who saved his father at Kleidion and killed Botaniates, ruled Bulgaria from October 1014 to August or September 1015. He inherited a shattered realm. The blinded soldiers were everywhere, a constant reminder of defeat. Byzantine armies pressed from multiple directions. Gabriel tried raiding Byzantine territory, reached as far as Constantinople's outskirts, but he could not stop the systematic conquest. His cousin Ivan Vladislav, the man Gabriel had saved from execution, murdered him during a hunting trip near Ostrovo. No details survive about how it happened, just that Ivan ambushed Gabriel and took the throne. Ivan ruled 1015 to 1018. He died fighting Byzantines at Dyrrhachion. With his death, organized Bulgarian resistance ended. The Botaniates family remained powerful in Byzantium for generations. Theophylact's grandson, Nikephoros III Botaniates, became Byzantine emperor in 1078. Nikephoros III altered the historical record, renaming his grandfather and changing the circumstances of his death to make the family look better. But the original sources preserve the truth. Theophylact died at Gabriel's hands after Kleidion, and that death triggered the mass blinding. The Byzantine army at Kleidion probably numbered at least 20,000 to 25,000 men. Exact figures are hard to establish. Warren Treadgold's study of Byzantine army numbers, published in War and History Journal in January 2005, estimates the total Byzantine military strength under Basil at around 124,000 troops empire-wide, including both the professional tagmata units and the provincial theme armies. But Basil would not have brought the entire army to one battle. He needed garrisons in Anatolia to watch the eastern frontier against the Fatimid Caliphate and the Abbasid remnants. He needed troops in Syria, in Georgia, in Greece. Likely he brought 30,000 to 40,000 to the Kleidion campaign, with maybe half directly engaged in the battle. The claim of 45,000 total Bulgarian forces seems inflated. Armies that large were rare in medieval warfare, especially for a kingdom already weakened by 14 years of attrition. More realistic estimates put Samuel's available manpower at 20,000 to 25,000 total, with most concentrated at Kleidion. Once the palisade broke, the Bulgarian line disintegrated within hours. The pursuit continued into the next day as Byzantine cavalry hunted fleeing Bulgarians. The mass capture of prisoners probably took 2 to 3 days as scattered Bulgarian forces surrendered rather than starve in the mountains. The blinding took longer. If 15,000 prisoners were divided into groups of 100 and processed systematically, even with multiple teams working, the operation could have taken a week or more. No source gives the exact timeline. But the blinded columns reached Prespa in early October, 3 months after the battle, so there was time. It may have contributed to Samuel's death, but it did not end the war. Bulgaria fought for 4 more years. Gabriel and Ivan both led campaigns. Cities had to be taken one by one. The psychological impact was real, but Basil still needed conventional military conquest to finish the job. Did the blinding work as political theater? Absolutely. The image of those blinded columns spread across the medieval world. Other enemies thought twice before defying Byzantium. The nickname Bulgar Slayer became propaganda. Later, Byzantine emperors invoked Basil's memory when facing threats. The mass blinding entered popular culture, appeared in chronicles across Europe, became a cautionary tale. In that sense, it worked perfectly. Terror as policy. Emperors had used it for centuries. The scale was unprecedented, but the practice was not. Other medieval rulers mutilated defeated enemies. The Frankish kings blinded rebels. Islamic caliphs mutilated prisoners. The Mongols, a century later, would kill entire cities. Medieval warfare had no Geneva Conventions. What shocks modern readers was normal for the age. He was a medieval emperor fighting a 48-year war of survival. His methods were brutal, but they ended the conflict. They brought decades of relative peace to the Balkans under Byzantine control. The First Bulgarian Empire did not rise again for 167 years. From Basil's perspective, the blinding achieved its strategic goal. From the Bulgarian perspective, it was a war crime that destroyed a generation. History holds both truths. Excavations at sites near Kleidion have found mass graves dating to the early 11th century. Skeletal remains show trauma consistent with battle injuries. No eye sockets can prove blinding. Soft tissue does not survive a millennium, but the grave locations match the retreat routes described in the sources. The fortress at Strumitsa, where Samuel based his command, has been excavated. The fortifications date to the 10th and early 11th centuries, consistent with Samuel's building program. Some Bulgarian sources describe these men as holy fools or pilgrims, given status by the church to help them survive, but most probably lived as beggars or dependents on family. A blind man in the 11th century had few options. The mass blinding created a generation of disabled men across Bulgaria, a visible reminder of defeat in every town. The Tactica of Nikephoros Xiphias, Basil's predecessor, discusses infantry assaults on fortified positions and the importance of fixing enemy forces before striking from unexpected directions. Xiphias' maneuver at Kleidion followed standard Byzantine tactical doctrine. The innovation was not the tactic, but the execution. The climb over Belisica was difficult enough that the Bulgarians did not adequately guard it. Xiphias' men had to be tough, disciplined, and silent. That level of training and leadership made the difference. Heavy infantry played the key role at Kleidion despite Byzantine armies being famous for cavalry. Climbing Belisica required infantry. Assaulting the palisade required infantry. Once the palisade broke, cavalry poured through to run down fleeing Bulgarians, but infantry won the battle. This aligns with recent scholarship on Byzantine warfare. Basil's armies always included strong infantry contingents. His tagmata, the professional corps troops, were heavily armored infantrymen with mail shirts, large shields, spears, and swords. They were among the best heavy infantry in the medieval world. The Varangian Guard, elite warriors from Scandinavia and Kievan Rus, served as imperial bodyguards and shock troops. 6,000 Rus warriors joined Basil in 988, sent by Vladimir of Kiev in exchange for Basil's sister Anna in marriage and the Christianization of Kiev. These Varangians may have fought at Kleidion. The Struma River Valley was the main north-south route through this region. Anyone wanting to move armies between Thessalonica and the Bulgarian heartland around Skopje and Ohrid had to pass near here. Samuel chose well. He picked a natural choke point and fortified it heavily. In another context, his defense might have worked. Against a less patient enemy, it would have worked. But Basil was willing to take casualties, willing to invest time, willing to send men up a mountain to find the angle Samuel had not covered. That flexibility, that willingness to adapt, defined Basil's success. Trade routes reopened. Thessalonica thrived as a regional center. Constantinople's position as the dominant Mediterranean power was secure for another generation. This stability lasted until the 1070s when the Seljuk Turks defeated Byzantium at Manzikert in 1071 and began conquering Anatolia. That defeat started the long Byzantine decline. But in the 1020s, after Basil died, the empire was at its medieval peak. Bulgaria's perspective is different. The defeat at Kleidion and the mass blinding became a national trauma, a story passed down through generations. When Bulgaria regained independence in 1185 under the Second Bulgarian Empire, the memory of Kleidion and the Bulgar Slayer shaped national identity. Later, Bulgarian rulers avoided direct confrontation with Byzantine armies when possible. Guerrilla warfare, fortified strongholds, diplomatic maneuvers became preferred strategies. The lesson was clear. Do not fight Byzantium in open battle. Do not give them the chance to use their superior resources and discipline. Bleed them, delay them, outlast them, but never give them a Kleidion. Modern Bulgaria remembers the battle at Trajan's Gate in 986 as a great victory and Kleidion in 1014 as a great tragedy. The two battles are taught together in schools. The rise and fall of the First Bulgarian Empire. Samuel is remembered as a hero who fought impossible odds. Basil is remembered as a brutal conqueror. The historical record is more complex. Samuel was himself a conqueror who seized territory, killed Byzantine soldiers, destroyed Byzantine towns. Basil was a defensive emperor for much of his reign, fighting to hold what his empire had. Both men were products of their time, of a medieval world where warfare was continuous and mercy was rare. It left the victim alive but unable to fight or see. In Byzantium, blinding was done by professional executioners, men trained in the procedure. Whether Basil brought such specialists to Kleidion, or whether soldiers improvised, we do not know. The sources focus on the numbers and the 1 in 100 ratio, not the mechanics. Families recognizing sons, brothers, fathers. The horror spreading from village to village as the columns passed. This was the point. Basil wanted everyone in Bulgaria to see what defying Constantinople meant. The blinded soldiers were a message written in human bodies. And Samuel, in Prespa, received that message and died. This suggests it was considered acceptable, even if extreme. The Orthodox Church, which had enormous influence in Byzantium, did not record any protest. Either church leaders supported the decision or stayed silent. The mass blinding happened with the implicit approval of Byzantine society. Bulgarian sources from the time are scarce. Most Bulgarian chronicles were written later after Byzantine conquest, under Byzantine censorship. The Bulgarian Manassas translation, done in the 14th century under the Second Bulgarian Empire, preserves some earlier accounts. That source gives the lower prisoner count of 8,000, possibly reflecting Bulgarian records or memories that had more accurate figures. But even 8,000 blinded men is a staggering number, a catastrophe for a small medieval kingdom. Population estimates for early 11th century Bulgaria range from 1 to 2 million total. 8,000 to 15,000 blinded soldiers represents a huge percentage of the military-age male population. Combined with the thousands killed in the battle itself and the earlier 14 years of attrition warfare, Bulgaria's demographic base was shattered. The kingdom could not recover. Even with Samuel's sons leading resistance, even with continued fighting, the outcome was determined. Basil had broken Bulgaria's ability to field armies. Likely most were prisoners of war like the rest, chosen for partial blinding rather than full, tasked with the grim duty of leading their fellows home, then left to survive as best they could in a devastated kingdom. In the chaos after the battle, with thousands of prisoners scattered across the valley, some surely slipped away into the mountains. But the sources emphasize the thoroughness of the operation. Basil divided the prisoners into neat groups of 100. That level of organization suggests tight control. Guards, systematic processing, minimal chance for escape. The Byzantine army was disciplined and experienced. They knew how to manage prisoners. Without modern antibiotics, many blinded prisoners probably died of infections in the days and weeks after the procedure. Fever, pain, sepsis. The walk home would have been agony, stumbling over rough ground, unable to see, weakened by blood loss and shock. How many died on the road? The sources do not record this. They focus on the shock to Samuel when the survivors reached Prespa. But the death toll from infection and exposure was likely hundreds, maybe thousands more. Basil had more soldiers, more resources, better equipment. Byzantine smiths produced higher quality armor and weapons. Byzantine logistics were superior. The empire had a monetary economy, professional tax collection, the ability to sustain long campaigns. Bulgaria had none of this. It was a semi-feudal kingdom with a warrior aristocracy and peasant levies. Once Basil committed to total war, once he decided to destroy Bulgaria, no matter the cost or time required, the outcome was inevitable. Kleidion just accelerated the end. What if the palisade had held and the Byzantine army had broken against it? Basil would have retreated, regrouped, come back. He was patient. He had time. Defeat at Kleidion would have delayed Byzantine victory, maybe for years. But without outside help, without a major Byzantine internal crisis, Bulgaria could not win a war of attrition. The resource imbalance was too great. Samuel needed a decisive victory that broke Byzantine will to fight. Kleidion was supposed to be the battle. Instead, it became his doom. Alternative routes existed, but all were difficult. Basil could have attacked from the east, through the Rhodope Mountains. He could have come by sea to the Adriatic and invaded from the west. He could have negotiated with Serbian or Croatian leaders to open other approaches. But the Struma Valley was the best route, the most direct, the one with existing roads and supply depots. Taking Kleidion meant opening that route permanently. Samuel knew this, which is why he fortified it so heavily, and Basil knew it, which is why he spent weeks finding a way through. The battle is studied in military academies as an example of tactical flexibility. When frontal assault fails, find another angle, use terrain, accept risk. The climb over Belisica was dangerous, but the alternative was retreat. Xiphias and his men succeeded because they trained hard, followed orders, kept quiet, and moved fast when they reached the top. Discipline won. That lesson applies across centuries of warfare. What military objective justified blinding 15,000 prisoners? Ending the war? Deterring future rebellions? Punishing Bulgaria for 48 years of resistance? All of these and none fully justify the scale. Basil chose maximum terror. He succeeded in his goals, and the moral cost is still debated 1,000 years later. Skylitz's, writing in the 1090s, describes his methodical campaigns with admiration. Kekaumenos, another 11th century writer, records the blinding but does not condemn it. Only later sources, Bulgarian and some Western European, describe the act with horror. The contemporary Byzantine world saw Basil as a tough but effective ruler who did what was necessary. The alternative view took centuries to emerge. A major battle happened at Kleidion on July 29, 1014. Byzantines won decisively. Many thousands of Bulgarian prisoners were blinded. Samuel died of a heart attack 2 months later after seeing them. Bulgaria collapsed within 4 years. These facts appear in multiple independent sources and are archaeologically consistent with the evidence on the ground. When the Second Bulgarian Empire rose in 1185, it was oriented more toward avoiding direct conflict with major powers and building diplomatic networks. The traumatic memory of Kleidion and the Bulgar Slayer influenced strategy and culture. Later, Bulgarian rulers never forgot what happened when you gave Byzantium a chance to bring overwhelming force to bear. It became a question asked in Constantinople during crises. The nickname was both praise and warning. Praise for his success, warning about the costs. Basil won, but he became known for one act of extraordinary cruelty rather than his decades of careful governance and strategic patience. That is the price of using terror as a weapon. It defines you. After Basil returned to Constantinople, after Bulgaria fell, after the blinded soldiers had been sent home and Samuel was dead and the war was won, Basil instituted new regulations for the treatment of Bulgarian civilians. He reduced taxes in former Bulgarian territories. He allowed Bulgarian nobles who submitted to keep their lands. He appointed Bulgarians to administrative posts. He built churches in Bulgarian cities. He wanted the population to accept Byzantine rule peacefully. By the time Basil died in 1025, Bulgaria was a stable province. There were no major uprisings. The integration was brutal at the start, but effective in the end. Basil broke Bulgaria with war and blinding, then rebuilt it with relatively light governance. The combination of maximum violence followed by moderation created a peace that lasted. Whether that justifies the blinding is a question every reader must answer for themselves. History records both the violence and the peace, both the blinding and the churches. Basil built both. July 29, 1014. A mountain pass in the Belisitsa range. 15,000 prisoners divided into groups of 100. 99 blinded in each group. One eye left in the 100th man. The columns walking home to Prespa. Samuel dying when he saw them. The First Bulgarian Empire ending 4 years later. These are the facts. This is what happened. And in a grave pit near the modern village of Kluk, archaeologists found bones that matched the retreat routes, remains of men who fell during the battle or died on the march home, physical proof that this story is not legend but history. The blinding happened. The war ended. The Balkans changed forever. That is the truth from the Battle of Kleidion.